Hello everyone, this is Glenn Hicks. Welcome to another episode of You Know It Is True. So what are you going to do? Today we're going to continue our study on the issues with Project 2025 and the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we're going to actually focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So stand by for some great information. So the issue of DEIA made its way into the One Big Beautiful Bill by way of Project 2025. Now, I'm going to read to you an excerpt from Project 2025. It's in diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Delete the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitivity, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency, regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. This is from Project 2025's Forward. It was written by a gentleman by the name of Kevin Roberts, and I'll tell you a little bit about him in a few minutes here. But what happened with the bill itself, it introduced this particular line of thinking, and it reads like this. The Director of the Office of Management and Budget, assisted by the Attorney General and the Director of the Office of Personnel Management, shall coordinate the termination of all discriminatory programs, including illegal DEI and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, which is DEIA mandates, policies, programs, preferences, and activities in the federal government under whatever name they appear. That's a little bit different from what was in Project 2025. Here's the reason. DEIA stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. It refers to initiatives and practices designed to create environments where people from all backgrounds feel valued, respected, and have equal opportunities to participate and succeed. Diversity focuses on representation from different groups. Equity addresses fair treatment and outcomes by meeting individuals' unique needs, and inclusion ensures everyone feels welcome and safe. And accessibility removes barriers for people with disabilities. When I read this, I thought, did Governor Abbott read this? So naturally, you would wonder if a person like Governor Abbott, who has a disability, would actually be a proponent of such a bill as this or any part of it. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, the excerpt from the Forward Project 2025 that was authored by Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation. He's actually, was at the time, president of the Heritage Foundation. Mr. Roberts has a peculiar position on African American history, having been a student of it, actually. He believes that African American history is essential to understanding the American story, but he strongly opposes interpretations that he considers radical or political. He has voiced strong opposition to critical race theory and the 1619 Project, framing them as divisive and inaccurate portrayals of history. His position is shaped by the following views. Rejection of critical race theory. Roberts regards CRT as a dangerous, subversive, and sinister ideology that pits Americans against one another based on skin color. Wait a minute. Isn't that the same result as sending troops into the neighborhoods to fight crime? Maybe not based on skin color, but maybe something deeper. Think about it. The Heritage Foundation has published multiple commentaries and reports criticizing critical race theory and recommending its removal from educational settings. I also have an opposition to the 1619 Project. He dismisses the New York Times 1619 Project, which reexamines American history through the lens of slavery, as a political project riddled with factual errors. He believes it should not be taught in schools as an accurate historical account. In other words, they found a few inaccurate statements and now want to throw out the whole thing. Now, if we did this with the 5th grade history books, there would likely be no 5th grade history books. So anyway, Another thing that he believes is in a promotion of a patriotic education. Before joining the Heritage Foundation, Roberts served on the Texas 1836 Project Advisory Committee, which was established to promote what state leaders call patriotic education. The project was seen by critics as a way to promote a sanitized and whitewashed version of Texas history. Then there's this emphasis on accountability. Roberts and the Heritage Foundation have promoted the idea of black accountability, suggesting that the path to capturing the American dream for African Americans lies in individual accountability and embracing conservative policies. Let's see how that works. Academic background on slavery. While a vehement opponent of CRT and DEI programs, Roberts wrote his dissertation on the history of slavery in Louisiana. His academic work examined the effects of major societal and economic changes on enslaved people of African descent. In essence, Roberts supports including African American history in the national narrative, but opposes what he views as a progressive reframing of that history, particularly in the educational curricula. Now, for the record, I did not find a connection or a direct connection between Roberts and Trump. Just does not appear, or the dots do not currently connect. But there are people who were involved with Project 2025 who were part of Trump's prior administration, have had some kind of connection to him. And I'll be right back to tell you how we got here with DEI. Ever ask yourself, what is the origin of DEI? How did we get here? Well, today's diversity, equity, and inclusion movement started during the civil rights and feminist or women's rights movements of the mid-20th century, what we would say the 30s through the 60s. It was developed to fight discrimination, create more equitable or fair opportunities in institutions of every kind, such as schools, banks, housing, the housing industry, hospitals, government that had long excluded, marginalized, or those treated as insignificant or unimportant groups. While the term DEI gained prominence in recent years, the underlying concepts or reasons evolved over many years. Here are some of the foundations of DEI. The Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. This period marked the beginning of DEI in its modern sense. Very significant legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin in hiring and other areas. Then we had the affirmative or supportive, hopeful, or encouraging action. We call it affirmative action, 1960s. Executive Order 11246 issued in 1965, which required federal contractors to take affirmative action to ensure equal employment opportunity, particularly for what we call underrepresented groups. Underrepresented means they were excluded. They were not part of the picture. An example of underrepresentation can be seen in old movies. We call them black and white movies because that is what they were on screen. But as you sit and watch, all you see are people that were mostly white with very few people of color. This concept of affirmative action aimed to address historical underrepresentation on purpose. Another foundation is effort to expand definitions. This was during the 70s and 90s, or through the 90s. DEI efforts expanded beyond race and gender to include other groups such as people with disabilities. Legislation like the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, in 1990 strengthened or enforced workplace protections. Business case for diversity in the 1980s was another issue. As legal constraints prompted changes, some businesses began to frame diversity as a competitive advantage. They learned over time that different or diverse groups actually brought ideas that advanced the mission of companies because they addressed the needs of a broader society. An example, A manufacturer discovers that people of every color like certain styles of clothing. Instead of providing for just one sector, the manufacturer found a bigger market for jeans or sneakers. This kind of thing gained traction as a key motivator for DEI programs. We began to see people of color on TV advertising products while Grandpa dropped his spoon in the soup, wondering what is the world coming to on this here television. Indeed, it was a shock to many. So another aspect of the DEI presentation itself, or proliferation, I should say, globalization and inclusion in the 2000s. Globalization, put simply, is the process of businesses or organizations developing worldwide influence or operating on multiple continents. In the 2000s, globalization and increasingly diverse workforces led to a new emphasis on inclusion. Organizations moved beyond simply hiring diverse employees to focusing on creating a culture or shared way of life where all employees feel valued, important, cherished, and part of the whole group. Many people today have no idea what it feels like to walk into a workplace and see no one that you can relate to or that resembles you in any way. Well, some of the recent developments should also be acknowledged here. Response to social movements in the 2010s to 2020s, social movements such as Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and Stop Asian American Pacific Islander Hate, we call it AAPI, all of which amplified calls for racial and social justice, bringing these issues into the workplace. There's a focus on equity, which means fair and impartial, or have a stake in what's going on during the 2010s to 20s. In recent years, the concept of equity has been emphasized to distinguish it from simple equality. The distinction highlights the need to address systemic barriers and provide different resources to different people to ensure fair outcomes. There's a growing backlash in the 2020s that we saw. DEI efforts have faced pushback in recent years, including legal challenges to affirmative action policies and restrictions on DEI programs in government and educational institutions. What does all this mean? After the break, I will explain a few things. Here's a little more information about what this means to the public. What are some things that may happen as a result of banning DEI? Banning diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiatives can lead to various outcomes, many of which involve the following: diminishing diversity and inclusion in workplaces and educational institutions. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians will be slowly removed from these places because it would be easy to dismiss them. If DEIA got us in, then you know that the absence of DEIA will push us out. Let's be real about this. If it took laws to change something, then the absence of those laws will bring back the previous. I've been around the sun too many times to be as gullible to believe things will work without restraints and constraints. We humans are not that good. You know it's true. Effects include increased discrimination, decreased employee morale, reduced innovation, and challenges in recruiting and retaining diverse talent. Some of the workplace effects of this: worsening workplace culture. The elimination of DEI or DEIA programs can foster environments that feel hostile or exclusionary to the marginalized groups. This can harm morale and overall productivity. Employees may feel less valued and less connected to their organizations. Increased discrimination and inequality. Without DEI initiatives, there may be fewer safeguards to prevent discrimination based on race, gender, or other characteristics. This can amplify existing biases in hiring, in promotions, and performance reviews. If we have reduced diversity and innovation, the homogeneous teams are more prone to groupthink, leading to less creativity and innovation. A ban on DEI can cause a noticeable lack of diversity in leadership across the company. It can hinder problem solving and adaptability. Some challenges in talent acquisition and retention will also arise. Many job candidates prioritize working for inclusive employers. If we scrap DEI, this can make organizations less appealing to diverse talent, leading to higher turnover rates and difficulty in attracting qualified candidates from the underrepresented groups. Also, there are legal risks and brand damage. Companies that dismantle DEI programs may face backlash from employees and advocacy groups, damaging their reputation. They could also potentially have legal risks that are related to discrimination lawsuits. Some of the effects in higher education would have limited student support. DEI initiatives often provide support systems, scholarships, and networking opportunities for underrepresented students, such as ethnic and racial minorities, veterans, and those from low-income backgrounds. Banning DEI can lead to fewer of these resources, causing students to feel both unsupported and disconnected. Now, reduced enrollment and access could happen as well. Without supportive DEI programs, students from marginalized communities may feel less welcome on campus and rethink their enrollment. This can particularly impact students of color who may face greater financial obstacles without diversity-based scholarships. Faculty mental health and retention would be affected. Faculty who support DEI can experience increased stress and frustration, potentially leading to burnout or even resignation. This can result in a less diverse faculty, leading students with fewer role models who share their backgrounds. Restricted academic freedom. Legislation against DEI can lead to self-censorship among faculty who may fear backlash or job loss for discussing topics like systemic racism or gender identity. This restricts critical thinking, limits classroom dialogue on crucial social issues. Then there can be cuts to campus programs. Universities have responded to DEI bans by closing DEI offices, eliminating staff positions, and cutting funding for multicultural student organizations. And here's a broader society effect. Increased polarization. The debate over DEI bans often reinforces political polarization and erodes trust between different identity groups. This can lead to more public distrust and misunderstandings of DEI efforts. It can stifle public health progress. Anti-DEI efforts can hinder advancements in health, equity, and clinical trial diversity. This can worsen health disparities and increase healthcare costs, particularly impacting marginalized communities. Then there's the talent pipeline disruption. By limiting diverse experiences in education, DEI bans can harm the talent pipeline for industries like STEM that require diverse perspectives to innovate. Then there's economic losses. Research suggests that anti-DEI policies can have negative economic consequences, such as decreased business investment and talent drain in affected states. And when I return, I will share how we turn this thing around. Because believe me, we must, we can, we will. Here are some things you can do to turn this boat around. A business that supports what DEIA has accomplished can simply continue the policies, but rename them something else like Global Perspective, A Better Way, Positive Initiatives, Best Work Practices, Commitment to Excellence, and Progress Goals. Individuals can support the organizations that are on the front line fighting for our freedoms, such as American Civil Liberties Union, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, National Women's Law Center, Southern Poverty Law Center, the Poor People's Campaign, the Center for Constitutional Rights, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, and Native American Rights Fund. These groups focus on protecting the rights of specific communities and challenging systemic inequalities. Another thing you can do is register to vote. Register, plan to vote, follow the plan to vote. Actually do it. Join the campaigns for those that support your causes. Use your phone, call or write your councilpersons, alderpersons, congresspersons, senators or representatives, both state and federal. Remember, only you can make it happen. Thanks for joining us again today on You Know It's True. Join us again on our next podcast. God bless you and yours.